The Romans are famous for having some rather interesting eating habits. But they did have one thing very much in common with people today, and that was their love of sweet things. Honey was often the easiest sweetener that they had to hand, which is why they used it to make all sorts of lovely sweet treats for them to eat and enjoy. And which is also why today I am going to be having a go at making a Roman-inspired honey cake. So the ingredients are as follows. Just 50 grams of flour. Now, if you saw my salt loaf video, you would have seen, or heard rather, that I do not have scales at the moment. I googled how many millilitres 50 grams of flour is, and it's about 80. So this is what I've measured out in my measuring jug. So hopefully, she says with some trepidation, hopefully that's the right amount of flour. But if you have got scales at home, it's 50 grams. There was no way I was going to break these eggs on film. It's not particularly a skill I have. I did manage to do 2 of them without breaking a yolk, which I was quite impressed with. But anyway, yeah, so 3 eggs. And the last ingredient is 200 grams of honey. So I have here a jar of honey that I've recently bought that is currently unopened, and it says it is 454 grams. So I'm going to put in about half of this honey. I've preheated the oven, so if you have a fan oven, it is 160 degrees. If you haven't got a fan oven, it's 170 degrees, or 330 Fahrenheit, or gas mark 3. I'm now going to beat my eggs with an electric whisker. I'm going to beat them until they get really stiff and have lots of air bubbles in them. So I think that I have done what the recipe said. I've beaten them hard and until they are starting to get stiff, which I think must look like that. They're looking quite thick. And it also says there's lots of air bubbles, which there are. So next up, I'm going to gradually beat in the honey. So I have my jar of honey. I'm going to pour in a bit, beat it for a bit, pour in a bit more, beat it for a bit more, until I've put about half the honey in and all the mixture is mixed up. So let's see how I get on. Next bit of honey going in. The Romans just love this stuff. But there's that famous account by that writer Patronus who talks about how they used to eat dormice dipped in honey and rolled in poppy seeds. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot imagine eating anything like that today, certainly not a dormouse. So here we go. A bit more of the honey going in. Let's see, how far have we got? So we can't see when I tip it over to make you see better, but we have got, we are getting nearly half, so I think there'll be one extra bit going in after this. Goes what I think will be the final bit of honey. Let's see, put it on the surface. Oh, not quite half, I'll just put a teensy bit more in. Again. This is really getting to be a thing in my videos. The amount of mess I'm making, honey everywhere. You can't see, but off to the side there is a mountain of flour on my worktop. So yeah, clearing up will be fun. So hopefully this will be the last bit of beating. Let's see how we get on. Last up is the flour. So the recipe recommends spelt flour, which is kind of an older grain kind of flour that people would have had access to back then. Of course, at the moment, getting flour from the shops isn't the easiest thing, and I hadn't even looked for spelt flour, but I imagine that's going to be difficult to get. I feel very lucky to have got my hands on the flour that I was able to. The recipe says if you're not able to use spelt flour, any kind of flour is probably okay. The recipe also states that it needs to be sifted, so I don't have a sieve, which I thought I did, but apparently it turns out that I don't. So I haven't sifted mine, so again that might make for an interesting mixture. So I'm going to fold it in as the recipe says, with my wooden spoon, and we'll just see how it turns out. It's a very bubbly mixture. I've never actually seen a cake mixture quite like this before. I'm just going to fold it in a little bit at a time. The reason being because I haven't sifted it, so I'm not sure if it's going to have a big impact on what I do. So I'm thinking, as I'm not sifting it, definitely gradually is the way forward. Oops, slipped a bit there. Oh, never mind, let's just keep going. Gradually folding it in. I'm not even really sure how to fold something in. I should probably have looked up that term beforehand. But I've gone at this a bit gung-ho. I haven't got the right materials, haven't got the right knowledge and know-how. But you know what, I'm going to have a go anyway. And I'm going to see how it turns out. This is probably the most exciting afternoon I've probably had. Ideally, what you want for this mixture is 2 cake baking tins, like this sort of size. Fortunately, I only have 1, and looking at the amount of mixture I have, there is no way it's all going to fit in there. So I'm also going to use this rather small baking tray, which is not ideal for cakes. Probably a lot of good reasons why I shouldn't use it, but it's what I've got, so I'm going to go with it. I'm going to put some baking paper on the inside of it and pour in the mixture. Ooh. See how thick that goes. I think we'll pour all of it in. Well, there's all that honey, which I thought had been beaten in, so hopefully it's not all just stuck into the middle. Scrape it out and make sure you get it all in. So, what do you guys think? I'm not sure it looks all that appetising right now, but we are going to go for it. It is going in the oven. I'm going to bake it in the oven for about 40 to 50 minutes. I'm probably going to keep an eye on it and turn it around part way through, as my oven likes to cook more on one side than the other, despite being a fan oven. And hopefully it will start to look golden brown, light and fluffy, and it'll be done. Fingers crossed. So here it is, out the oven. Slightly unusual looking cake. It's definitely a different kind of texture to how I would normally think a cake should be. The 2 holes in it are where I have poked it to see if it's cooked. I don't know if the usual way of checking a cake would work for this kind of cake. You know, when you stick in something sharp and when you pull it out, if it's got the mixture on it, it means it's still not cooked. If it comes out without the mixture on it, it's cooked. So my the knife that I stuck in came out clean, so I'm going to assume that it's cooked. It's also quite a nice sort of colour, sort of looking a bit dark around the edges, so they might be starting, if I left it in a bit, might have started to get overdone. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm going to let it cool. And then when it's cool, I'm going to be really brave and try a piece and see what it tastes like. Here is the honey cake. So it is a very strange cake, and admittedly that might be because it hasn't been baked by a particularly competent cook. But it does taste quite nice. So it's a very flat cake. It is very sweet. It does taste very strongly of honey, so if you like honey, you'll love this cake. It's a weird sort of texture. It's almost kind of like a fluffy batter. It's kind of like gooey and sticky in the middle. And it's kind of like sort of firmer on the bottom than it is on the top. Now inside, can you see this bit here? I kind of pulled it away, not particularly neat. You can see like lumps of flour, and I think that's probably why it said that you needed to sift it rather than just pour it in, like I did. but I will say that I can't stop eating it. It tastes really good, and I suppose because it's honey and eggs, a little bit of flour rather than lots of sugar and stuff like that, it's probably not, as cakes go, not that unhealthy, which is what I'm going to tell myself while I tuck into it over the next few days. I would very much like to know whether you guys have a similar result if you make this cake at home. Maybe you are better bakers than I am, maybe you have better equipment than I do, maybe you've got a proper sieve that you can sieve the flour with to stop that awful clumping thing that happened just there. Or maybe not, maybe you guys are real novices like me and just have a bash it just to see how it turns out. Either way, share them with us, I'd love to see, but also I'd love to learn from your experiences as well. So if you have any tips that you discover along the way for how to make this cake a little bit better next time, I would love to know. So, in the meantime, happy baking, and above all, happy eating.